Hey everybody, it's Travis the Pagan Scholar, along with Marshall, the other Pagan Scholar.
Hi guys.
And we are going to be doing part 2 of our summer book review readings. This is a video divided up into 2 sections. If you wanted to hear about the book that I read, Michael Thomas York's Pagan Theology, I think his middle name is Thomas, I don't know. Anyway,
that sounds familiar.
You can check the previous video. If you are interested in Marshall's book, please keep watching.
Alright, we have here The Origin of the Gods, the pretty pink and green book by Richard Caldwell. The Origin of the Gods, a psychoanalytic study of Greek theogonic myth. You might actually, if you were in college and you're reading Hesiod's Theogony, turns out that that is one of the reasons why Richard Caldwell is famous. He was the preeminent translator and writer of Hesiod's Theogony. It's one of the versions that is most used, or something of that nature. He was a professor. Of course, when this book was published, he was alive. Richard S. Caldwell is professor of classics at the University of Southern California. I was about to say Carolina. Opposite side of the nation. He got his degree, he has multiple, but he got one of his degrees at the University of Texas in Austin. So, weirdos come from Austin. It is basically a Freudian analysis of Hesiod's Theogony of the Gods. It is 5 chapters long. The first and the last are introduction and conclusion respectively. You'd think, oh, well this is just going to be an easy, it's going to be a breeze.
Not so.
Not really. The chapters are then divided up into sub-chapters that are numerous, and that made this book a little bit difficult to read at times. I'll give Travis some credit here. He always talks about how when there's foreign names that he doesn't necessarily know how to pronounce, that it gets a little tedious. Well, normally I'm like totally fine with that. I enjoy it. I enjoy language. He is, I'm assuming he spoke or could read very well and pronounce ancient Greek, considering he translated, Theogony.
It's a safe bet.
It's a safe bet, yes. What he does, which I think is just almost kind of silly, maybe it was an 80s thing, he transliterates the names as close to what the actual Greeks would say as possible. I'm not even going to go in. I'm going to let you find the book and look at how he spells Oedipus. He also seems to have only a few people that he really likes to cite in this book. Freud being one of them, of course.
He also has people he doesn't like to cite.
Oh yeah. I will say this, tested my interest in Jung. He has a moment where I'm going to jump a little bit. Freud's other point that some dream symbols elicit no response from the associations of the dreamer and therefore require for interpretation a kind of universal or at least culture-specific codebook is one of several instances where Freud seems close to agreeing with Jung's fallacious notion of a collective unconscious.
Fallacious!
Fallacious. Isn't that a great word? He is definitely a Freudian. The book is showing how the gods are in fact us. It's kind of like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Of course, there are some people who would say the gods came first, but then there are other people who would say that the gods came from us. Gods came first and they created people. Anyway, he analyzes the theogony of the gods, the origin stories, and tells you this is what this means in the life of a human being, and this is how they interpreted it. He's not entirely without humor. I will content myself with advising the reader who agrees with Kirk's opinions about psychoanalysis that he or she will probably find an ample source of aggravation in the pages to follow. I don't know anything about Kirk, so I wasn't really aggravated so much as just interested. It was like, oh, do tell. The first part is applied psychoanalysis, all the different Freudian aspects of the psychological upbringing of a human being. Like, I learned more about the anal birth fantasy than I ever thought I'd ever know. Maybe I'll learn more. He goes into the process of symbiosis and individuation, which is something that Jung was interested in as well and kind of got from what I understand, Freud, but Freud took it in a very different direction. He talks about how Tiresias was made blind because he knew the secrets of the gods, and
the secrets of the gods being sex.
Sex, yes. Which he refers to as the secrets of the parents. We have chapter 3, which is text and context. This is where he kind of, toots his own horn and he reprints his translation of the Theogony, which is really beautiful. It's really quite lovely. Hell, get the book just for that. You get 2 books for the price of 1. There's the question in text and context, the question of who came first, Homer or Hesiod, and did they actually know about each other's writings? This is important to him because he's talking about the similarities of the writings. He's also talking about the differences, and the similarities and differences of other origin myths. He goes into the Enuma Elish, which I believe is Mesopotamian. Many different aspects of the symbols, the two most important of which, the fire of life and the water of life. Basically, it's all semen. I hate to say that, but you know, basically.
I'm such an adult.
It's all semen. He talks about, which I think is really interesting, myths of other cultures influencing cultures that they are conquered by. Meaning that sometimes myths will meet all the emotional needs of a people that didn't have them before. I thought that that was kind of a commentary on people finding paganism or finding an inner paganism and looking at all the different types of myths out there, all the different types of pantheons out there, and finding the ones that resonate with them. And one of the things that I think is really beautiful about all that is that we are free these days to, it's like, well, I kind of like the Greek myths, but I kind of resonate more with the Norse myths, and so I guess I gotta be Norse. No, go with whoever, go with whoever feels good. For the last chapter with meat in it is Origin and Succession. He talks about the family trees. In fact, he prints family trees, which are actually really fabulous. I recommend this book for many things, but this one is one of them. It goes into the yeah, it goes into where everything came from, where everyone came from. And one of my favorite aspects, I was talking with Travis about this, is he goes into the 4 non-caused entities of origin: Chaos, Gaia, Tartarus, and Eros. And we had this discussion about Eros being one of the primary non-caused entities, but at the same time being the child of Aphrodite, who also, interestingly enough, is one of the oldest goddesses. Is it talking about a name, or can someone be named after an event, and, and how, where did that come from, or is it all the same being? One of my favorite parts of that chapter.
Maybe one for the theologian.
Yes, tying it all together. So, it's, what he describes it, and I'll share this with you because I think it's really interesting, one of the reasons why I think everybody should read this book. Chaos, Gaia, Tartarus, and Eros. Or rather, possibility, earth, frustration of desire, or the emergence and fulfillment of desire, which I think is really important. The simple difference between bliss and pain is if you are frustrated from achieving your desires, or if you are developing new desires.
Do you think that maybe chaos and the earth, Gaia, are opposites as well? Because the earth is pretty predictable, it's pretty stable. I mean, like, sure, we have unannounced events like volcanoes and stuff like that, but, I mean...
The volcanoes are kind of announced, sweetie.
You know what I mean? Like, there is chaos of the earth. However, chaos is lawless, whereas the earth has patterns.
True,
so
but at the same time, he's talking about it. Well, I do agree with that. But he's talking about how chaos isn't necessarily reckless abandon so much as it is possibility. And that was the Grecian understanding, was that chaos was potential.
Well, I was thinking entropy.
Okay, well, no, I guess I could see that, but I think he's referring more to the idea that chaos means potential.
And you read the book, so I'm interested on it.
The final chapter is, of course, the conclusion, and I must admit I was a little bit disappointed. I was kind of disappointed in the same way. Maybe it's just nobody knows how to write a conclusion. Maybe nobody does. Maybe that is actually all of our dread, all of our fear and trembling, to use the Kierkegaardian term. I just felt that the conclusion was just kind of like, yep, now I'm gonna finish the book, and that's all she wrote. Ta-da! It basically sums it up that Zeus is the success story of the theogony, of the Freudian mess that is the origin story, that you don't always have to be a victim of your past or of the ancient past. The stories of the Titans and the primal gods were all just this horrible mess of husbands eating their wives so they wouldn't have the children outside of the butt. And yeah, it was just this terrible mess. And Zeus was guilty of that too, but it's because he figured out how to do it right. It's a bad thing, but he was doing it right, so that's okay.
Zeus is such a bro.
Yeah, it's just such a bro. I would definitely recommend this book. It's kind of difficult to find, I've found, on Amazon. It's kind of pricey for just this. I think it's just because it's a little older, but at the same time it's still there, it's still available. And hell, I found this one in a used bookstore, here in town. It was $5, man. How could I pass that up? It was all marked up and whatnot, and then I added my own markings, so even with faults, because there aren't really that many, I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10, because it's just really that interesting, and because he just really knows his stuff about history. I would definitely recommend this book, so Very cool. Yeah.
Alright guys, thank you for watching, and please, please, please leave us your comments on the books.
Yes.
We will answer any questions you want. Looking forward to talking to you guys again. And as always, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again.